Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. And we're back with Logic Apps Live for January 2025. Have like new crew members, have new things to show. So let's start the show. I think as the first order of business is to introduce our new team member. Hey, Fernando, I'll
Hey,
let you go
Wagner,
and introduce yourself.
thank you very much. And also, Happy New Lunar Year for those who celebrate. I'm
Mhm.
a new member of the Logic Apps team. Please allow me a couple of minutes to talk to you about myself. I started working with Microsoft as a Microsoft MVP in 2017, was also part of the Reconnect program. And I have 8 years working at Microsoft, three of those years working in the integration space, especially around API management. Just to encapsulate a little bit about my passion for the integration space, I share two quotes. One of those is the one of the biggest quotes by Jeff Bezos recently, where he was sharing, he is oftenly asked what will change in the next 10 years, but he rarely hears what will remain unchanged in the next 10 years. And in my opinion, I think integration will be one of those areas that will keep going for the next 10 years, even though it's not so sexy and in fashion like other areas, but we have more systems that we need to integrate, and customers have more needs of integration. And another one by one of my colleagues, Pascal, and also I've seen Harold use this, is that in order for you to innovate, you must integrate first. And sometimes you need to integrate with legacy apps, with modern apps, and now you need to integrate with AI systems. So that's a little bit about me.
And although you're a new member to the Logic Apps team, you're not a stranger for the AIS enthusiasts, right? You just came from the API management, and a lot of people knew you from that. So it's really nice to have you with us, mate. Looking
Yes,
forward to a lot of
thank you
new
very
things that
much.
we're going to do together. So let's go to the agenda. Let's see what we have for today. As usual, we're going to present the ACE Aviator of the month for January. We're going to show some community updates, also like events that are coming, some of initiatives that you have in place. We're going to do a quick presentation about the .NET migrations, like what's new there. And then we're going to be talking a little bit about the automated testing framework, right? I know there's a lot of people who's been waiting for some of those updates. We're going to be having that really soon for you guys. Kent is going to present in AI agent pattern, the routing pattern for AI agents, and Divya is planning to present the Logic Apps template, the new accelerators, right? I think she might have a conflict, but if she be able to, she's going to present that on this session. Otherwise, that is going to be one of our first order of business for next session. So let's go in and start with the Ace Aviator of the month, right? This month, the Ace Aviator is Ahmed Bayomi, right? CTO at Contica AB, and also one of the hosts of the Integration Love Story podcast, right? A lot of people knows Ahmed from many different places, like from Contica, from the Nordic Integration Summit, from the Integration Love Story, right? And some of the quotes that I found quite interesting on the what we shared with us for the Ace Aviator of the month was that he really liked working closely with the teams and kind of getting on top of things, like actually get your hands dirty, as we say, because this is what makes him, even as a CTO, to keep on top of the latest technologies, right? Another thing that he really liked to do and makes inspiring is being part of the community, like what we do in Aviators. This actually makes you do more and make you want to continue learning and continue presenting and sharing with people. Which brings us to the next item that he shared, like embracing challenges, stay curious, right, and always learning is what make you grow professionally. One thing that I thought that was quite interesting to start adding to the Ace Aviator of the month is we always ask about the Logic Apps Magic Wand. If you had a Magic Wand, what you would be doing with that? And from his point of view, that I think he thinks that AI enhanced workflow optimization and troubleshooting would be what he would do with a magic wand. So you see, like more and more, the advances of AI make us take a lot more insights and more information from our day-to-day life, but also professional. Having that on Logic Apps, it's something that you would really love to. So PMs and all of us as PMs starting to take notes, all of that. If you wanted to know a little bit more about what Ahmed shared, and also lots of the updates that came in December, both from the community and from Microsoft, go to aka.ms/logicappsaviator/Gen25, right? With that, I'll pass it to Fernando to talk about some of our community updates.
Thank you very much, Wagner. So one of the first one is one of our biggest conferences of the year, Integrate 2025. It has already been announced. Of course, it's going to be hybrid mode. You can come in London or also via remote. You can see the sessions, keynotes, and all the content that we prepare for you. This is one of the largest integration conference, and of course, it's just right after Build. So it allows us to share all of this good news with our European customers, partners, and users. So it's a good place where you can find Logic Apps updates. You can also find messaging services updates, API management updates, and all of our integration services in a single place. This year is going to be June 9th and 10th. And of course, we are a technology partner of this conference. And if you can go to the next slide, please, Wagner. As part of being a partner, we can offer you this discount if you use this code. There are also some discounts going on and expiring today. So there's a New Year discount, which is the biggest one. It's actually going to expire tomorrow. Then there's a super early bird, and then there's the early bird. So if you want to come, it's very exciting, a lot of energy, a lot of people talking about integration, implementation, hands-on experience, from all of our top users. So you get a lot of knowledge in this conference. So please come, use this discount or use the New Year, super early bird, or early bird discount also to see us hopefully there. Yeah.
If there is one place that you're going to find with most Azure integration PMs and engineering team, is going to be on Integrate, for sure.
Integrate, yes, for sure. And come say hi. Probably most of our team is going to be there also. Another update for you, if you are new to our community playbook, our goal here is to enhance our documentation with community contributions. You can share your expertise and knowledge. People create a lot of blog posts and a lot of content. So we want to take this content, evolve it a little bit, curate it a little bit, and use it as part of our official documentation in the Microsoft Learn Logic Apps section. So basically, you can come. You can get involved. There's a call for papers that it's completely open. You can scan the QR code, follow this link, and basically add your details, share the content that you created, and we will get in touch with you and tell you what are the next steps for getting that content into our official documentation. And of course, we will highlight you and highlight your contribution, give you attribution of this content. So it's another way where your contributions can impact the whole Azure Logic Apps users. So feel free to participate, and please submit your ideas and your content in this link and the QR code.
And we already have some contributions under review right now, not just accepted, but written and under review. So hopefully by the end of on the next one or early after that, we're going to start having some of the community content to share with you all.
Definitely, yeah. So next one. And of course, we also recommend you the podcast Integration Love Story. I've seen, Wagner has been there, Kent, a lot of very nice interviews, a lot of very nice stories around integration, Azure integration services. And of course, this is by our ACE Aviator of the Month, Ahmed Bayumi, and also Robin Wild. So take a look at their content. They have a lot of playlists, very curated list. So very nice content here, Ahmed and Robin. So please take a look at that podcast.
Awesome. And now to our to some of our content. So the first one that we have on the list is .NET 8 migration update, right? So the .NET migration is underway, right? Behind the scenes, we are working on updating our bundles and the components on the platform to support .NET 8, since .NET 6 is now out of support. For most of the customers, that is going to be totally transparent, right? Behind the scenes, we're going to identify if you have the right setup to run .NET 8 and simply swap that automatically, so you don't need to do anything. There is a couple of actually there's some scenarios that requires manual intervention. So you're going to have a manual intervention if you're using a NuGet model to deploy your applications, because in this case you have to compile, and you needed to compile again with the latest version of the bundle to support that. If you have a very specific bundle pinned, because only the latest, I think the latest version 194 or 196, I can remember, from that number onwards is that's going to start to support .NET 8. Or if you have a very particular version of function host, or if you're still running functions v3 that is fully out of support now, right? We just put some new guidance in place for you to, if you are on one of those manual interventions, what are the steps that you need to do that migration? So you can go to aka.ms/LA standard/.NET 8 upgrade, and you can find the blog with all the information that is required there. With .NET 8 out of the way, let's talk about automated testing framework. I know there's a lot of people is waiting for this. There is a lot of things that we've been discussing since Integrate last year, right? But we made some adjustments. We received a lot of feedback, even of those early setups, and that's why we delayed a little bit the private preview to make sure that we give you something that could be used for most of your scenarios, or the majority of your scenarios. So just as a recap, when you're talking about automating testing for logic apps, the first thing is define what is a logic apps unit test, right? And in this case, the objective for us of a logic apps unit test is to test a workflow scenario, not individual parts of the workflow, but like a branch of that workflow based on some control inputs, right? We know that today, one of the big issues for you to testing is making sure that you have the right data and that you have all the systems available for you to test. And also, it's not an easy way to do automatic assertions to make sure if that scenario is passing or fail, depending on that. So with that in mind, the goals for the automated testing for logic apps today is, one, decouple workflows from external components, improve the productivity with test repeatability, right? For with one click, you're able to rerun a couple of test scenarios and making sure if changes that you did of the workflow or your workflow that you're about to deploy still passing the requirements that you had before. And increase code quality not just locally during your development process, but also during your build to minimize the amount of issues that you can push to your upper environments. The approach that you get to that is a little bit different from what we initially envisioned, right? Now we are providing the guided authoring for automated tests, scaffolding the unit test in two ways. We're going to generate mocks from existing run, and you're going to generate .NET code using a unit test framework and our SDK together to allow you to create the code, to create those unit tests. That is going to allow you to do pretty much all the scenarios instead of the initial approach that we had that would give you some scenarios with codeless, and then after that would have to migrate to codeful. When you think about the sum of the scenarios that you could be using that, as I said before, local testing during development lifecycle, repeatable testing suites so you can actually verify your code before you start pushing, and testing verification during build processes, right? So those are three scenarios that I think resonates with a lot of people. how is that going to work, right? So what we're doing here is extending our Logic Apps VS Code extension to include a couple of components. One is a Logic Apps unit test SDK that can be that is going to be loaded together with the unit test with the extension when you need to, but also be able for you to use standalone if you need to. But the other place where you're going to be giving guidance is with a unit test generation wizard, right? So you're going to be able to generate a unit test scenario, as we said before, based on an existing run, or creating all the scaffolding that you need to create from a Logic Apps definition. When you get all of this, when you run this wizard, what is going to give you are a couple of components. Is going to give you a C# component class, actually a C# solution with classes inside that give you the test class, the test methods, and the ability to create dynamic callbacks for those mocks that you needed to run dynamically throughout the runtime. But also give you like a mock definition in JSON format with the triggers and the mockable actions if you have like already a run that you wanted to base your test on top of, right? One of the things that is important when you're looking at that is that all of those definitions, we're not creating a whole new unit test framework. We're creating an SDK, and the sample code that you're going to give you is based on MS Test. But because it's an SDK, you can actually create the other Logic Apps from scratch if you wanted to, with other unit test frameworks. When it comes to execution, we're going to base all of the execution on the Logic Apps runtime core components. That means that you give as much fidelity as is possible for the runtime. You're not going to be doing something that the runtime was not going to do. We're just going to be replacing the mocks and after that assert. The way that we're going to be doing this is by creating a workflow execution API that you can invoke directly from your code, right? And run that. The other thing that is this engine or this component is going to give you is the ability to present those unit tests that are available or the latest execution or the current execution using the test explorer that comes to VS Code. So it's fully integrated with VS Code. You have like a full environment there to run this. But the best way to actually see that is by seeing that in action. And we have Andrew here from the engineering team that is going to be presenting that a demo with all of that for what we have currently in private preview. So Andrew, thanks for joining us. I'm going to add your machine to the stage. Take it away.
All right. You guys can see my screen now, right?
All good.
All right. So I'm just going to show you an example of what creating unit tests might look like really quick. So we have a sample workflow here. All it does, we just have a trigger for a service bus receiving messages in a queue. We parse out the content of that message, and then depending on it, we ping one of two possible endpoints, and then we complete the message in the queue. So I already have a successful run for this workflow. If I go here, and I can create a unit test, just clicking this button here, and it'll add it to this test folder in your Logic App workspace. So you have tests and then your Logic App, and then beneath that, you'll have your workflows and then your tests within there. Inside the test I just created, which would be this one, we have two files. We have a mock JSON file and a C# MS test based file. So I'll go through the JSON first. It's fairly simple. You just have your trigger mocks and your action mocks, and these are all based off of the run that you created the unit test from. So in our case, we had just the trigger mock, which was receiving messages in a service bus queue. The status for our run was succeeded, and these were the outputs that we had. And then for the action mocks, there's only a certain subset of actions which are mockable in a workflow. And in the workflow that I just ran, these two actions, call external systems and complete message in a queue, are mockable. So we add them here, and these are both succeeded, as you can see.
Andrew, Do you mind like zooming in a little bit so people can
sure.
see it better?
Yep. It is Control-Shift+ for VS Code, right?
Yeah, I think it's Control-Shift+.
Okay, for some reason it's not doing anything right now. Let me see if I can just do
Then view zoom in.
View appearance. Zoom in. Does that say Control plus equals Control? Yeah, so it's Control-Shift+. Okay, can you guys see it?
Yeah, much better, man. Thank you.
Yeah. So any questions regarding the mocks? Feel free to bring those up. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to the MS test file. So by default, we generate this file, which has 3 example tests in it. 2 of them are success cases, one using statically defined action mocks. So those are just static outputs similar to what we just saw in the mock.json file, and one using dynamically defined outputs, which you use a callback method for, which takes in a test execution context of the details of your workflow run up to that point, and you can use that to determine whatever you want the outputs to be for your current action. And we also have another test case, which is just a failed action mock to show how that works. So up here, it's just a bunch of private fields, and they're initialized here. These just specify different parameters related to paths in your logic app. So this basically stays unchanged. And I'm going to go ahead and make a few modifications to these just so that we can run them and see them work. So for instance here, this is the example of a successful action mock using statically defined outputs. So if I wanted to, in this line here, I could change the value of one of the action mocks and set it, like as it shows here, whatever the property name is to whatever the property value would be. We have validation being done, which makes sure that the property names in the outputs are actually valid for that action type. So if I were to run this right now, it would result in an error because your property name is not a valid property on the action. So we're going to go ahead and comment those out. Down here in the act section, we have our unit test executor that Wagner was talking about earlier, as well as our run workflow API. So the unit test executor just takes in all those paths that we defined earlier, so related to your workflow connections, parameters, and local settings definitions. And then after you create the executor, you run your workflow using your mock data, and that will give you out this test run object, which you can then use to programmatically get data about different aspects of your run, including like overall status, details about individual actions in the run, details about the variables and different outputs and stuff like that. Right here, we just have a simple example where we make sure the test run is not null, and we make sure that it's succeeded status. So yeah, for the next example, this is the dynamically defined action that uses a callback. So if I go to the definition for this, I'm also going to make a slight modification here because it has that same property being set here, which is not valid for that action type. So we're just going to go ahead and use this as an example to set status code to 200. And of course, you could use this test execution context of the details of the run up to that point in the run to produce an output depending on the previous actions, which is the entire purpose of using the callback in this context. But for now, we're just going to return status code 200, and it's essentially going to do the same thing as the previous example. All the stuff down here is identical. And the last example is for a failed action mock. So if you want to mock a failed action in your workflow, you have to use this test error info class. In that, you just specify error code and a message and optionally additional details. And then you create an action mock similar to above, except for instead of saying the status is succeeded, it's not failed, and you pass in the error. And then down here, we're just going to assert that the overall status is failed. So if I go ahead and build this, we should be able to just go to the test explorer and run these. All right. So you can see it appears here. And when you run the unit test, it has to start up the test host. So the first one will typically take a bit of additional time. As you can see down here, we have a run that's 23 seconds followed by 2 runs for 1 second. But yeah, it'll run through all these tests. And I believe there shouldn't be any errors with these. And if there's any questions or anything in the comments, let me know. All right, yep.
No questions yet. I think everyone is actually mesmerized by the process.
Okay. So yeah, is there anything else you'd like me to go over? Otherwise, it's the entire demo.
I was really I think it's something that we discussed before. Can you make one of those actually fail, like one of those debug errors that we talked
yeah,
before?
Sure.
Yeah, because the two things that I find really cool about this process, one is like that button directly inside the thing, so you can test that specific test from there, and also the errors are all in place, right? So for those that are used to .NET, that's not new, but for the people that is actually that are starting to use that on first time, like having the ability to be in the code and test that and making sure that you find the error straight away is super useful as well.
Right. So here's an example of one of the things you're talking about. So we use on the back end what are called static results. So in this case, the error is that static result definition for the action that we were trying to mock has invalid outputs field with the property or property name. And that's because we specified that right up here.
Yeah. So it's not just that it's generating the error, that is actually a quite useful error for you to have as well, right? It actually shows something that is that is easy for people to find out. Let us come back to that. Andrew, thank you very much for that. I didn't see any questions yet. If anyone has questions on any of this, please let me know or add it to the chat, and then we can go and start answer that by the end of the show. And if you wanted to test that, we have an expression of interest open. So if you can go to aka.ms/LA standard devx test private preview, I'll add that in a minute to the chat. And if you're doing that, we're going to be hook you up with the private components, so should be able to use it. Thanks, Ahmed, for the feedback here, and also for the feedback behind the scenes. I know that you already been used that as your Christmas gift. With that, I think as next would be just before we pass it to Kent, what you're going to find on private preview and what is going to be the next steps for that, right? So on the private preview, as Andrew showing, you're going to have the create from run. We have execute unit tests and test explorer support, right? You would be able to create from scratch, but manually, not with guidance. By public preview or before public preview, depending on if you do a private preview refresh, you're going to have the ability to create from scratch, to mock items that are actually part of those repeating structures, like for each, do until, and things like that. And we are enabling the support for dynamic mocks from action inputs. So the same, Andrew showed you that you have the context, but not just the context. You're going to have exactly where you are on the process on that loop, and the inputs of that particular action you should also be able to use to create your dynamic callbacks. By GA, you wanted to have all of that, plus the ability to mock parent-child workflows and DevOps tasks. So one of the things that we didn't discuss here, but that you probably notice is all of that is just .NET. So today you would be able to just add a .NET test script inside of build, and that would be building and running as part of your build process. But we wanted to give like more guidance and include that on all the work that you're already doing for IEC. So you would be having our scripts generated with that. And post-GA, depending on the feedback, is the mock for some of those actions depending on language workers, right? All of that is can be changed and prioritized depending on your feedback. That's why you participating of the private preview and give us as much feedback on the areas that are important for your workflows of your scenarios is super important for us. With that, so let me share my Kent's screen. And Kent, you already here? Yeah. So all yours.
Sounds good. Thanks, Wagner. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us here today. What I wanted to show today was a pattern, an AI agent pattern around routing. So let's just take a step back and talk a little bit about what is an agent. Now, in this case, the reference is coming from Anthropic. So this is their definition, and also the next slide is going to show a pattern, which is on their website as well. And, if you think about agents, there's a lot of different sort of definitions for them, but I think this one is pretty reasonable. And I think the real difference between what is the difference between a traditional workflow and an agent is this idea of deterministic versus non-deterministic. And when we think about workflows, oftentimes those are defined as deterministic executions. And then when we think about agents, there's usually some sort of dynamic routing that takes place in order to identify what might be the next best action, and then to leverage a tool in order to go ahead and accomplish that. Now, workflows themselves can oftentimes become a tool that you go ahead and use. And the one thing I would just sort of caution or sort of stress as a result of this page is that it's not to say deterministic is bad. There might be some scenarios where deterministic is quite good from a predictability perspective, but also look at non-deterministic execution as perhaps being a more flexible option. And so if we think about logic apps in this sort of space of agents, I think you're going to see more and more capabilities that we provide that give you that agent execution, that non-deterministic execution. But in the meantime, where you want to leverage deterministic execution, obviously that's not going anywhere. So let's take a particular use case. Now, this is considered a workflow pattern, but we're going to infuse this with AI, and we're going to leverage a large language model as a way to go ahead and route. So don't see this as a replacement for like a service bus, pub sub type orchestration. Think of this as more content-wise. And where this becomes particularly useful is in scenarios where you've got unstructured data and you need to be able to do some sort of categorization or classification of that unstructured data to then make a call to be able to route to the according path. Now, one particular use case is like customer service. So if you think about general questions, refund requests, or technical support, those all lend themselves to being able to use this particular pattern. And I do know back in the day, I built a system in BizTalk where we did take customer service emails and we had to go ahead and do some routing. And it was a nightmare, right? Like we would try to create these structures that were pretty predictable. We would have all these different parsing rules. And at the end of the day, it was super brittle because, one sort of minor sort of change and the whole sort of chain would break from that perspective. So let's take a look at an example, and we're going to implement this in Logic Apps. And so in this case, we're going to think about customer support. And we've got our famous Fourth Coffee fictitious company, where we're going to be able to take these requests from our customers over email. So we're going to get an email in. We're then going to use a large language model to categorize or classify these different requests. Now, in a situation where we've got an order and they're looking for some sort of order lookup or order status, we're actually going to use the LLM to help us route that particular request. Now, in this case, we actually have a sort of predefined path that we want to go down, and this will actually allow us to sort of use that workflow in a very deterministic way to go ahead and retrieve those results. Now, when we think about these other categories where we've got shipping and perhaps other, these are scenarios where we want to loop a human into the loop and allow them to help address. And this is a situation also where, as we get more and more comfortable with these different categories and how we can go ahead and solve them, that's where we can start to build more and more automation. In the meantime, we can basically assign to a human, and a human can go ahead and solve that particular use case. So this is the demo that I'm about to show. We're going to receive an email. We're going to use a large language model to classify this particular request. And then depending upon the request, we're then going to go ahead and route it to the appropriate sort of tool. In this case, it could be a child workflow or a human in the loop. So let's go ahead and show this in action. So what we've got here is that workflow that I just showed you. And we are going to now go ahead and construct an email. And the first email that we're going to go ahead and use is going to go down kind of this happy path of categorizing the email, then doing the order lookup, and then we'll call a child workflow to help with that. So we're going to create a prompt. Now, in this case, we are going to have the sort of user role with a instruction of determine the nature of this customer service request. And then what we've got is this system role. And this is super important. This is going to allow us as the developer to impose any constraints or instructions that we want the large language model to conform to. So what we're going to say is we're going to instruct it that you're an AI assistant that helps automate and route customer service requests. Your job is to classify this inbound email, which is going to come from our body of the trigger, and then determine whether this request is related to order lookup, shipping options, or other. Your response should return the following words only: order if it's related to order lookup, shipping if related to shipping options, or other if there isn't a match. Now, what we'll then do is we'll have a switch statement based upon this response. And remember, we're expecting a single word. And in the event that it's order, we'll go down this path. If it's related to shipping, we'll go down this path, or we've got the default other path. Now, this is also kind of interesting. So we know it's an order at this point. We're then going to go ahead and use the large language model to extract the order number from this text. Now, that can be represented many different ways if it's an unstructured email that we're going to get in. So once again, we're going to provide some instructions that say you're going to help automate and route customer service requests. We've determined this email is related to an order lookup. Here's the email. From this email, can you extract the order number? This value should be 5 digits long and begin with a 1. If you're unable to return the order number, return 99999. Only a 5-digit number should be returned. This is going to be quite useful when we think about our lookup, where we will take this input and then go ahead and query our Dataverse records to see what is the status of this lookup. Now, here's not really related to routing, but I think this is also kind of an interesting capability of using a large language model, is we're going to get a Dataverse output, right? This Dataverse like response is like a couple pages long. And what we can now do here is we can go ahead and provide that response to a large language model and then say, go ahead and construct me a customer-friendly information and go ahead and include specific information like the order number, the ship to address, the order total, and the order status. And it'll go ahead and do that. And then we can also tell it some things to not include in the email, like placeholders or like some different formatting of tags. So let's go ahead, let's send an email in, and let's go ahead and see this in action. So we're going to start with this particular email. And what we'll do is we just need to do some quick cleanup here. So we'll just get rid of this. I could have included that. The large language model won't complain about this. But here we got an unstructured email. And, we're saying my order number is 10004. So let's go ahead and we'll send that in. And now we'll head over to this particular workflow, and then we'll see this live from a run history perspective. And let's see, so let's just hit refresh. Usually there's a little bit of a delay with an email. Okay, we can see that it is in process right now. So let's go ahead and take a live view of this. So we've received that email, and we can see that it's going to have its outputs here. Now, what's interesting is that there's all this other junk that comes along with the email, right? So we've got all of this body with HTML and all of this jazz. And the large language model is going to look at all of this information, and it's going to be able to provide an output. So it's going to ingest all of this, and it's going to come out and say that this is related to order. So out of all of that information, it said, okay, I know this is order. And so then we're going to come down this path, and we're going to then go ahead and say, ask it, okay, so go ahead and extract the order number out of this email body. Now, once again, there's a bunch of junk in here, but that's okay. It's going to go ahead and provide this output of just the order number itself. And so that's really that routing, showing us that routing capability where the large language model has allowed us to go ahead and do that. Now, here we're going to go ahead and call that child workflow, which is going to do the order lookup. And so let's just switch over to that, hit our run history, and we'll see exactly sort of what took place here. And so we received the request. We've got that input, that 1004 is part of our order number that's passed in. We then go ahead and call Dynamics or Dataverse here, and we pass that in as a parameter. We then get this very long, ugly looking data structure, and we need to make sense of this. Now, we could go ahead and sort of pull those tokens out, but why not just pass that to the large language model and let it do what it does quite well? It'll go ahead and format that email, and it's going to use HTML, and it'll go ahead and send that out. So let's go ahead and take a look at the email. So we see that this has now been sent back to the original request. It's formatted, and it actually does a pretty good job of this, right? And so this is something where we leveraged the large language model to go ahead and help us do that. And there's no other smoke and mirrors here. What you saw in those prompts is really what we see here. And like I said, there was things that were put in to make sure it didn't do things like adding placeholders for where you might put your name, or having some tags around HTML. Said don't include those, and it went ahead and did that properly. So let's just take a look at one more use case, and then I'll pass the mic off to Divya here. So let's see, customer service. So we'll go ahead and show the shipping example. So maybe let's go to sent. And let's find one of these. Okay, so here's the shipping. Okay, so once again, this is for our friend Harold, who lives in Toronto. So we're going to just ask the question of, do you ship to Toronto? I live in Toronto, wondering if you can ship here. So I'm just going to leave this other junk here as well, and I don't anticipate this will be a problem. So let's now go ahead and send this in to that particular workflow, and we'll head out over to the on-ramp and look at the run history. Once again, there might be a few second delay here just because email takes some time. And 12:43, so let's just do a quick refresh. Okay, so this is now running. And yeah, so let's take, once again, we've gone ahead and categorized this particular email. We see it's now related to shipping. And in this case, we invoked another tool that will go ahead and loop a human, because maybe the human will go ahead and be able to answer this better than sort of our automation, at least this point in time. But this then gives us the opportunity to sort of enhance this, and now we'll focus on shipping. So that's kind of the demo, and hopefully this inspires you to sort of look into our capabilities. Here I am using Azure OpenAI. I'm using the built-in connectors that allow you to go ahead and sort of call these different models. I am using the 4.0 model, but I haven't done any additional training. I haven't ingested any of my own documents to sort of make this work. This is using the general purpose model itself. And yeah, I would look for more and more of these types of patterns kind of in the future as well. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Divya, to take it from here.
All right. So the next item on the list is you, Divya, with the new example for the accelerators, right?
Yeah, that's right, Wagner. Thank you.
Let me share your screen. You flickering a little bit with your microphone, but I think it's still able to hear.
Okay, I might need a new microphone then. Hopefully it's okay enough to understand what I'm saying. Yeah, so I think I'll just use a couple of minutes to talk about accelerators. This was basically something that we released late last year at Ignite. We announced the GA of templates, as well as we introduced the concept of accelerators. And we had said that it would be available in January. So now it's available to all customers in all regions. So would definitely recommend you to try. Accelerators are basically an extension to templates where you can have these are more complex end-to-end scenario-based solutions which can span across multiple workflows. So let's quickly see how it works. The entry point is again same, no difference there. Where I'm in a Logic App Standard here. In Logic App Standard, go to Workflows, and to create a new workflow, you would use Add from Template option. And here, when you go here, you would see the option to choose accelerators. And right now we have 2 samples here, but we will be adding more. You can also add more here because this is all open source. So right now I'll just demonstrate this capability with one of these examples. So let's pick the first one, which is an AI pattern where you can build a RAG-based application using this solution. So what it does is that it has 2 workflows where the first workflow allows you to ingest a document from SharePoint to AI search. So you can very quickly click on this and get an idea on what that workflow looks like. Basically, you're reading the files from SharePoint when they are getting created, doing some tokenization, splitting, generating the embeddings for them, and indexing them into AI search. In this summary, you will also find where this template is located in GitHub, as well as some more details in terms of prerequisites and other things. Likewise, this is the second workflow where step 1 of building these RAG applications is that you need to index data if you want to create agents which are personalized in your data. So that's the step 1. Step 2 is now you do RAG on that data, right? So this is the workflow that basically does that, where you can send a prompt and your questions, and then essentially use OpenAI, whatever model you want to use, to basically generate response to those questions. So in order to use this feature, once you have made a decision to use that template that meets your needs, you go in to use this template, and there you would have to, the first tab is where you can provide workflow names. You will see a default set of default names here. You can, of course, change them. The next step is to create the connections. I already have them created, so I don't need to create now, but you can change as well if you need to. And then you need to provide the parameter names. So here the first one is the AI search index name, then the text embedding, OpenAI chat model name. So I'm using GPT-4o here, and then the SharePoint site address and the library from which you want to read your documents to ingest. So let's see why basic is okay. Because I was trying this out before, I already had these workflows with these names. So we are doing some validation here as well, as you can see. And then after I have the parameters, now I'm ready to create these this. So once this process is complete, we can go into the workflow tab here and do a refresh. So now I have those two workflows that I was showing you created here. The first one is index from SharePoint. We added one to that, and then chat with your SharePoint documents. So very quickly, how it looks like if we go into the workflow. This is basically getting the metadata when a new file is being created on SharePoint. In the next step, we go and actually get the file content based on the SharePoint address and the file identifier. Here in parse document, this is a built-in action. We are basically tokenizing the document. In the chunk step, we are splitting the document based on the token size that is specified here. In this step, we are generating the vector embeddings for that document. And this is where we are using the model name that we passed in as a parameter when we were creating the templates. And here is a step to basically map whatever we are generating to the index that we need to create in AI search. So to run this template, I had already created that index in AI search. So here I'm just mapping my content to that index schema. And finally, this is the step where we actually write the vectors into AI search. So this completes the step to do ingestion. And then we have the step to chat with the documents. So if we go in here, in this workflow, we are providing you see that this takes in two parameters, the prompt and system message. You can, of course, write system message in the workflow itself, but the template needs to be more generic in nature. So we are taking in prompt and system message both. Based on the question, we are again generating the embeddings for that question and then doing search from AI search. So all that context is then passed to OpenAI along with the system message and the question that the user provides. And then we get back a response from this workflow. So in this workflow, what we have uploaded, I've already uploaded the document here on my SharePoint, but basically I have uploaded a document that has details about the benefit policies for a company. So it's a fictitious company with all the details around it. Since we have already run this with that document, so the document is already ingested, let's go ahead and basically run this workflow and see what it looks like. So I'll quickly, if I go to this workflow, there is a REST endpoint that we create for the request trigger here. So I'm just going to copy that endpoint, and then I'm going to invoke that API. Let's call that API. And here, as I was mentioning before, we are sending both the system prompt and the question. So here, the system prompt is very simple. You are an AI assistant to help with benefits questions, and then does my insurance cover eye exams. So let's send this question to the workflow we just created and wait for the response. All right. We will do live debugging in 2 minutes, but let's see what happened there. So this was my workflow. I am going to go into the run history and see what happened here. All right, so I think I had multiple connections available, and I have probably used a connection that was not valid. So let's quickly fix that here for everything that we have here. And here again, connection. save this workflow and give it a try again and see if it works this time. All right. All right, yeah. So my question was if it covers our exams, and it is giving details that it does cover, and what are the plans, that covers this. So this is just basically the idea with templates is that we are providing these samples as a way to accelerate developer productivity for you, as well as, these are very common patterns when it comes to building AI applications. So the hope here is that you can basically take advantage of these pre-existing workflows, one, to jumpstart your development, and second, to basically take advantage of these pre-built patterns that we know are recommended. Very quickly, I just want to show you the second template, and you can definitely give it a try because it has all the information in the template itself, as well as links to how you can use it. All right, so let me give it a try if it works. Okay, it's taking time to load, but the second template that I have there is a template to again read documents from SharePoint or blob storage, and these documents are resumes in this example. So this is a solution which basically does resume screening, and in this case I have two workflows. The first one is reading resumes from blob storage, but it is indexing into SQL Server. So this is again, like, you don't always have to, if you have structured data, or if you already have data in, for example, other places, for example, SQL here, or you have Cosmos DB you're using, you can again follow these patterns, that you can again follow the same process to read your documents, tokenize them, parse them, but then at the end you can add these vectors to other vector stores like SQL. And then using the second pattern to chat with documents, you can ask questions. In this example, like, you can give a prompt about a job requirement, and then the response the AI returns is the resumes that match for those requirements. So similar use cases, but very different patterns in the way that in the first one you can go completely with unstructured data and unstructured vector store, and here, even with your structured data, you can take advantage of logic apps to build these solutions. So that's all I have. If you have any feedback, please reach out to us offline, and hopefully you can give it a try now. It's available everywhere. Over to you, Wagner. That's all I had.
Thanks, Divya. I think it's going to be good for us to repeat that next month at the beginning, because I think that some people that couldn't get all of that because of the audio.
Yeah.
So one question from Ahmed is if it's possible to automate the deployment, or if it's only supported via the portal. I think I can answer that for you, that today we only have that in the portal. But one of the things that one of the things that we're going to be doing, that is probably on the next batch of the VS Code, is the ability to go to a portal site and import that into VS Code. From there, you would be able to do all the process that you have today. That would be parameterized, do everything you wanted, and then do the deployment to other environments. So you still be able to take advantage of the templates. Later on, I think that is on our roadmap to find out how to implement that directly to VS Code, so you don't have to do that extra step. Let me know if that answer your question, Ahmed. So the question from Hiran is, workflow from templates will be support from VS Code LA extension. It's on our roadmap, right, Divya?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any other questions, team? We're about 3 minutes over, which means that's like you guys are still enjoying the show because you're still here. If no other questions, remember that next week we have our newsletter, first Monday of the month, and we're going to include a copy of that for people that didn't watch. And we are back end of February, last Thursday of the month, with the next session.
Wagner, one other thing too it's probably worth just announcing or discussing the Azure Integration Services live as well webcast that's going to be taking place.
Yes. I forgot to add it here on my list, but keep an eye on Azure developers because you're going to have the chance to talk to the full AIS team more often, as we're planning to do a AIS developers live as well. So the whole Logic Apps team plus APIM, Service Bus, functions are going to bring all the gang together and doing like one session with all the hero features and your burning questions. So I think the first one is going to be 6th of February, right?
Correct. Yeah, I don't know the exact time, but it's on February 6th. And we will have a presence. Parth from our team will be talking about data mappers. So if people are interested, we've got some news right around the corner about data mapper UX refresh. So keep your eyes peeled. If you want to see a demo of that, join that session. And then I guess the other thing is we're going to continue to do Logic Apps Live every month, right? So this is you're only getting more, not less. And so looking forward to just even further engagement with the rest of the family. So I would look at it from that perspective.
Mm-hmm. As we say that back in Brazil, you're going to have more than one barbecue.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. Fernando, lots of people said that welcome, and see you all next month.
Yeah, thank you. See you.
Bye-bye.